Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. My name is Anik. I'm one of the co-founders of Elite Medics. We'll begin in the next couple of minutes. We'll just wait for as many parents to join today. Can I just do a quick mic check just in the chat if parents can hear me? If they could just post a comment in the chat. Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. Okay, fantastic. So we've got around 30 parents joining so far. We'll just give another couple of more minutes and then we'll start. Okay, so we'll just begin in the next couple of minutes. Okay, so we have around 33 parents now. So why don't we get started? I know it's already coming up to 8:02. So let's start the presentation for today. So first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to join this evening. I know evenings can get quite busy for parents, so I do appreciate you taking the time for joining the session. So what are we going to be spending the next hour talking about? So first of all, for those of you that missed the first part, my name is Anik. I'm one of the doctors and co-founders of Elite Medics, and the whole purpose for today's webinar is to talk about how we can help your child get into medicine. I'm obviously a training doctor. I've been through the process. And one of the many questions I get asked from a lot of parents is, how do I get my child into medicine? So the whole purpose of today's talk is to really equip parents with the tools and support they need in order to help direct their child into a career in medicine. So that's the main agenda for today. So it should last around an hour. And throughout the session, there will be plenty of opportunity for you to ask questions. During this talk, there is a live Q&A section available. So if at any point you do have any questions that you'd like to ask me, feel free to put it in the comment section and I'll pause every sort of 5-10 minutes or so to answer your questions. So let's just talk about quickly the agenda for today. Now, as I said, for many parents, especially, for instance, those parents that haven't gone through the UK medical admission process, they simply do not have enough first-hand experience in dealing with medical admissions. What is it exactly that universities are looking for to get my child an offer at their place? So what I really want to do is speak directly to you guys as a doctor that's trained in the UK, that's been through the process, to talk to you and exactly explain what you need to be doing as a parent in order to maximize your chances of getting your child into medical school. Now, the reason why this is important is because obviously a lot of parents, especially if you've not gone through that path, you're going to be relying on secondhand information from either other parents that have got into medicine, other kids that have got places into medicine, or from your child they've done their own research. But what's really important is, as a parent, you need to have all of the information yourself so that you can actually direct your child. So for today's webinar, we're going to be talking about why some students thrive academically while others struggle, how motivation and discipline affect exam performance. We're going to be talking about the entire medical school entrance process from UCAT to interviews to the OSCEs. We're going to talk about what it really takes in order to get into medicine, how to help your child make informed career decisions, and lastly, how to increase your child's confidence, ambition, and direction. Now, before we begin, what I'd like to do is just have a quick icebreaker. And I'd like to know, first of all, what year group is your child in? And are they interested in becoming a doctor? So if you don't mind, just for the next 30 seconds or so, if you don't mind just mentioning in the group chat, what year group is your child in? And are they actually interested in becoming a doctor? This would be a good idea just to know what sort of parents are we dealing with for today's session. Okay, so Ravi, year 12, year 10, and yes, excellent. Gayatri, year 9, yes. Okay. Year 12 wants to be a surgeon, fantastic. Year 12, year 7, year 9, year 7, year 12. Amit, thank you for sharing that. Year 11. Okay, so quite a lot of parents with kids still in sort of key stage 3, year 13, doing GCSEs. Excellent. Year 11. Fantastic. Any more parents? So the question is, what year group is your child in, and are they interested in becoming a doctor? Year 11. Okay, so again, quite a few parents also do it with their kids doing GCSEs. Year 9. Thank you so much for sharing that information. Now, this is quite useful because it gives me a bit of information that I can help with. Because what I want to try and do for today's session is take you back to when I also went through that academic journey as well. What did I do in order to secure the grades I needed to get into medical school? And as we'll go through this talk, you'll realize actually getting into medicine is not just about academia. It's more than just academia. And I'll talk about exactly how you as a parent can do to get your child past that barrier. So before we begin, let's talk about who we are. Now, some of you may have already come across our website before. Some of you may have seen our social ads in the past. We're a group of medics graduated from some of the top UK universities, including Oxford, Cambridge, and UCL, that have set up the UK's first medic-run science academy. So we are a tuition academy, and our focus and mission is to try and get as many kids inspired in the sciences, not just necessarily for medicine, but in fact for all the disciplines. And the way in which we conduct our lessons is very different to conventional, traditional tuition. What we're trying to do is we're trying to inspire and get more kids motivated in their own learning. One question I get asked from many parents is, look, I send my child to private school, they come back home, and despite giving them the best access to education, they still come back home and they're not motivated in their learning. And this is going to be one of the key take homes from this presentation today is how do we actually get our child to be more motivated in their learning? You can as a parent, you may wish for your child to become a doctor or for any other competitive career. But what's the most important thing is for your child to be interested and motivated themselves. It doesn't matter if you send them to the best career workshops, you send them to the best coaching academies, until and unless your child sees for themselves the reason of why they need to go through that process, they're simply not going to do as well in their exams. So the most important thing you can do as a parent is try to get them motivated as early on as possible. So what we try and do as elite medics is we help students improve their academic performance by building confidence and motivation, let them understand the career journey, and let them understand for themselves, is this actually the right path for them? So just a bit of a background into the company itself. So it's founded in 2018. Since 2018, we've helped over 10,000 students, not just with getting into medicine, but in fact with their high school exams from Key Stage 3 all the way up to A-levels. I'm not going to be talking too much about Elite Medics as a tuition company because I really want to focus mostly on the journey in order to get into medical school. It's founded by two doctors, myself and my business partner, Dr. Prakash Kamlatevan. We've over the last few years, as we've helped thousands of students, we've been featured in some of the press. This was an article which was recently published in The Guardian. The junior doctors are helping thousands of young students pass their high school exams. Just a bit about myself. So I graduated back in 2015. So I studied at UCL. I additionally undertook a postgraduate a BSc in medical physics. That was in 2012. And since graduating, I've now worked as a resident doctor for the last sort of decade or so. And I'm currently training to be essentially a specialist registrar in acute medicine. So acute medicine is a specialty that deals with the management of critically unwell patients, usually for the first 72 hours of their care. Since graduating, I've undertaken many years of sort of training and education. I regularly teach medical students, and I've also been part of the Elite Medics journey as well. Similarly, Dr. Prakash Kamlatevan, he studied his preclinical medicine at Cambridge and then subsequently transferred over to UCL for clinical years. After graduating, he worked sort of in the South Thames Deanery as a resident doctor, and since then he's also pursued higher academia. So he's done a master's, and then he's also done a PhD from Oxford as well. And similar to myself, Prakash and I, we both are heavily invested in transforming the way online education is delivered and how we can help inspire kids into competitive careers such as medicine. I'm going to pause it there just to see if there's any questions that are being asked. Now, remember, whilst I am giving this talk, I do want it to be an opportunity for you to ask questions, not just to myself, but about anything related to medicine, about my academic journey as well. So if you have any questions, please feel free to post it in the Q&A. Now, just to give you a bit of context, what sort of grades do you need in order to get into medicine? Now, this is back when I was applying for medicine. So for my GCSEs, I got 6 A stars, 1 A and 2 B grades. The 2 Bs were in IT, and that was as a result of the examining board downgrading everyone's marks, and that can happen. So just to be aware of, even if your child is predicted A stars or level 9s, they can get downgraded after exams are actually released. For A levels, I got 5 A's. Now, this is again before when the grading system was changed. So 5 A's was the highest at that point. There were no A stars at that level. So 5 A's was the highest at that point. I applied to 4 medical schools. I applied to UCL, Bristol, King's, and St. George's. I got into 2 out of the 4 medical schools. So I got into UCL and I got into Bristol. King's, unfortunately, I got rejected without interview. St. George's, I got rejected after my interview, but I did eventually choose UCL as my top university. Prakash, on the other hand, so he got straight 12 A stars at GCSEs. He got 4 A's at A level. Again, as similar to me, A's was the sort of the top mark back then, and he applied to, again, 4 medical schools: UCL, Cambridge, King's, and Nottingham. And he got into Cambridge and then subsequently transferred to UCL for his post-clinical medicine. Just as a separate academic achievement, I also got awarded the top 5 marks in the country for GCSE maths. So that's something that I put also on my personal statement. Now, this is quite an important point. Now, yes, I've put our grades down, but actually getting into medicine is not just about grades. The second most important thing is, it's quite a big myth. Sort of parents think that my child's either gifted or not, they're not intelligent enough to apply to medicine. Now, I know there's a lot of parents with kids as young as in sort of year 7, year 8s. What's really important to know is getting good grades is not just about natural intelligence. We all have an innate ability to sort of comprehend and be able to pass exams at a certain standard. But actually, what really makes us do well in exams or not and get that sort of academic success is really more than just about being smart. Actually, it's also about making sure you have strong habits, being able to learn from role models, surrounding yourselves with ambitious people, and most importantly, having the confidence that you can actually achieve whatever you want. Now, I can only talk about myself. I don't particularly regard myself as particularly super smart. I obviously did well in all of my exams, but it took a lot of hard work to get to where I was. It's not just because of intelligence, it's because of the structure and routine that I built from an early age that got sort of allowed me to get to the place where I am today. So for parents that think that actually, do you know what, my child isn't smart enough to get into medicine, I'd like to just start the slate clean and just start by saying, actually, every child has the potential to do the best in their exams, so long as they're motivated and they've got the right support in order to do good. So that's why it's so important for parents to know exactly what they need to be able to do to support their child. That's why I'm doing this talk, is so that you as a parent, you can help your child from an early point to get them into the right framework, into knowing that, yes, they can get into medicine if they do want to. Because obviously we all know getting into medicine is extremely difficult. It's extremely competitive. It's not just about grades. It's more than just grades. It's about how do you fit the right personal sort of individual, what the universities are actually looking for. I'm going to stop there just to see again if there's any further questions. Now, I can't see many questions being posted. Please feel free to post any questions you have at any point. Now, there'll be much more opportunity later on, and there'll be a live Q&A at the end. But don't feel you need to wait until the end to ask me any questions. So what we're going to be talking about during this talk is mainly focusing on these key areas. How do you get good grades? How do you write a strong personal statement? How do you prepare for entrance exams? And lastly, about medical interviews. These are the 4 steps that you as a parent, you need to know about in order to support your child. It's one thing your child knowing about this, but what's really important is you as a parent knowing this so that you can guide your child. Because when I applied to medicine, my parents, I was the first individual in my immediate family to get into medical school. So I had to rely a lot on what other people had to say. Now, it's very different. You as a parent have been equipped with this information, especially if you've not gone through that process. I know there's some parents today that are doctors, and so you probably are familiar with the general process. But for those parents that are not medics, it's really important for you to know exactly about all of these different steps, because firstly, you can stay on top of your child's progress, but also you know exactly how to get your child into all of these different individual processes. So the first thing is, what actually improves grades? I'm going to ask you this question out to the parents first of all. So what do you think will actually improve grades? Let's just put this out to parents, and I want to hear some of your answers. What do you think will actually improve grades? So again, just a few seconds just to answer this question. What actually improves grades? Or what do you think should improve grades? And I can see there is a question after GCSEs. What should we? We'll talk about this in a second. Practice. Okay, fantastic. Revision. Prepare for exams. Anything else from any other parent? What can you do as a parent so that your child can actually get the best chance of getting the best grades? Consistent practice. Excellent. Starting good time. Study mechanisms that work for the individual. I'll just take a few more answers. Routines. Exactly. Routine and time management. I think you guys have hit the nail on the head. That's exactly it. Now, I'll give you an example of what I did when I was preparing for my GCSEs and A levels. So I think the most important thing here is intelligence doesn't come into this. It doesn't matter what your child's baseline grades are, especially if they're starting from either year 7, year 8, year 9. Forget about if your child has passed, if they've had a poor experience with exams in the past. You can always improve grades. There's always time to improve grades. Now, when I was going through Key Stage 3, GCSEs and levels, during my GCSE years, I had a pretty rigid routine. And I don't want to scare parents or if they think that my child's not doing this, I was consistently doing, on average, around 5 hours minimum after school time every single day for about 4 years, 5 hours on my own learning minimum every single day to go through my revision. And the reason why I spent 5 hours was because as an individual, I'm an individual that it takes a lot of time for me to actually read something, absorb it, and actually process it. On the other hand, I'm actually a twin. My brother, on the very hand, he would probably spend maybe an hour or maximum 2 hours. So he would never revise. Every day it would be me doing all of the revision at home. And my parents would get annoyed and say, why can't you be more like myself, speaking to my brother, why can't you be more like Anik and do a lot of revision? And actually, we both did comparably well in our exams. We did just as good as each other in our actual exams. But for myself, because I'm an individual that needs more time and practice, I had to actually spend 5 hours every single day in order to revise for my content, whereas my brother would spend an hour or two maximum. So the first most important thing is you as a parent should know exactly what your child's baseline requirements are. How much time do they need in order to be able to grasp something if they were to learn it for the first time? So as you all have said, the most important thing is a clear routine. After school, know exactly what your child needs to be doing in order to get the practice in. Because nowadays, kids come back from school, they get distracted, they start playing PlayStation, they go into social media, but they forget that actually our brains, when we're learning at that stage, is malleable into learning new information. So as soon as you get back home, there should be a clear routine. Exactly how much time am I going to spend doing biology, chemistry, math, physics? During the entire week, there should be a timetable so you know as a parent exactly what my child is doing at certain intervals. So that's the first thing, is about having a structure, following routines. What's really important is also, even if your child has got the structure, even if you are sending, as a parent, even if you're sending them to after school coaching or private tuition, they could still come back and still not actually deliver the results that they need. And you may ask yourselves, well, why is it my child's going to private school, they're going to a grammar school, but yet they're still not getting the grades that they actually need? And one of the biggest reasons for that is because they're not actually motivated in order to doing well in the exams. What's really important for an individual at that early age is knowing the importance of what they're doing. So my dad kept drilling this into me when I was going through that process, is if you don't do well, this is where you could end up. So for me, actually, my older brother, he unfortunately did not get into medicine. He wanted to do medicine initially, but he didn't get in. And so for me, seeing that he wasn't able to get into medicine acted as a sort of an impetus for me that no, I want to be able to get into medical school. So I did everything that I could in order to get into medicine. And that was my motivating factor. So for many young kids, they simply do not have that motivation because they don't know themselves the importance. So actually, being exposed to other individuals who are high achievers is extremely important. Being surrounded by people who want to do well is extremely important because that sort of projection to your child will actually reflect on them as well. So, having a good routine, having a good structure, getting your child to be surrounded by high achievers is extremely important. And lastly, they need to be accountable for their own learning. They can't just blame teachers. I went to a state comprehensive school. And again, I don't want to make this all about myself. I just want to give an idea of a benchmark of what I got and what I ended up with. So I went to a state comprehensive school. Majority of our classes were taught by supply teachers. And so really it wasn't the learning during the school hours that got me the grades that I need to do. It was all of the learning outside of school that was able to actually get the grades. So it's not about blaming any other person. It's about taking individual ownership on your own grades. I'm going to pause there just to see if there's any other questions or comments. So again, other people have mentioned past paper practice, smart working, revision, identify areas of weakness and find alternative routes to support, active recall. Exactly. These are all fantastic answers. And one of the most important things that you can actually do for grades, and I really do believe this is the most important thing a child can do in order to get the best grades. What happens is, especially for those kids in year 11 or year 13, they spend so much time reading theory, reading their textbooks, and they actually lose track. The purpose of an exam is to actually know what the examiners are actually wanting and asking for. So the best thing any child can actually do, and even if your kid is in Key Stage 3, every year group has their own mark scheme and examiner's report. Your child should be looking at the examiner's report for every year and identifying exactly what the examiners are looking for in each question. So the most important thing a child can do is actually, as you quite rightly have said, go through as many exam questions as possible, not 2-3 months before exams, but actually start 12 months before. Here at Elite Medics, what we actually do is we run get ahead classes during the summer months. During the summer months, some kids will think, okay, do you know what? This is time to enjoy and relax. But actually, this is the opportunity your child should be doing in order to prepare for the next academic year. And that's exactly what I did. You should be getting 2 to 3 months a head start before everyone else. And that's how you actually stay on top of your learning. There's a question that's been asked by one of the parents. Please advise how to balance between content mastering and doing past papers. Both are important, but the tricky part is how to balance. And that's such an important question. And again, I struggled with this when I was going through my GCSE levels. The way you balance this is you need to be able to, and the best way to do this is whenever you read something, and even when we're medicine, being a doctor is all about not just about, it doesn't end just once you've got into medical school or once you've graduated. It's actually, this is the whole process of teaching and practicing medicine. It's about seeing something, reading about it, and actually practicing it there and then. So whenever your child is actually learning something new for the first time, whenever you read something, you should immediately focus on actually testing yourself at that point of when you've actually learned it. So what your child should be doing is from day one, they should not just be focusing on just reading textbooks. Actually, the same time they're actually learning something new, they should be testing themselves and looking at the question and answer papers to see, well, let's try and find a question that's come up in the past related to this content and apply it there and then. And that's how you actually build on your knowledge, and it sticks into your mind a lot better. So actually, how you balance content and practice papers is actually you should be doing it in parallel. One of the biggest reasons kids don't do well in exams is because they spend too much time tackling the theory and they only have maybe 6 to 8 weeks actually doing the past paper prep. So actually from September onwards, they should be doing past paper practice the very time they're actually learning the core theory. Okay. What are the chances for state school students in top universities? As the chances for individual attending a state school to get into medicine is comparable, if not greater, to a student going to a private school. Because when you apply to a university, every individual is going to be taking a reference from the head of their academic year. And in my reference, the first thing that my tutor wrote was, Anik Guy attends a state school that's poorly ranked in the system, for instance. So that sets the scene. So actually, going to a state school doesn't put you at a disadvantage. Now, it doesn't mean to say that if you go to a private school, you're at a disadvantage. It's just that it doesn't matter which school you go to, whether that's state, grammar, or private. We all have different opportunities in life. Some get the chance to go to private schools, but actually, the one opportunity we all have, regardless of how well off we are in life, is the access to education. So actually, it doesn't matter whether your child goes to a state, private school, or grammar school. They need to have the thirst in order to do well. For me, it was the fact that I saw my brother do a lot of hard work and he didn't get into medicine. And I wanted to prove to my parents that, look, I will do what my brother couldn't do. That was actually one of the reasons. And so I had that thirst that, do you know what, regardless of what happens, I want to make sure I do well in my exams. Both in GCSEs and A levels. This was a state comprehensive school. I got the highest grade in my entire year for GCSEs and similarly for A levels. It's not to say that I was smart or super smart. It's because I had the motivation to do well. And actually, when I got to university, I realized that actually I thought I was smart, but when I got to university and I was studying medicine at UCL, actually I was probably borderline average. There were far more other students that were far more intelligent than me. But the key thing was I was able to get myself into medical school. Now, as I briefly mentioned, role models is super important. If your child hangs around with kids that are they're not paying attention, that's going to reflect on themselves. So please make sure as a parent, you should see what's the the social environment for your child. If your child is consistently surrounded by people who want to do well, they're also going to be naturally motivated. And that's one of the reasons some parents send their kids to private schools. It's not the fact that private schools will make my child do better in the exams. It's the fact that by going to a private school or a state school, the chances are you're going to be surrounded by other individuals who are as invested in their learning. So what you should be doing is making sure your kids meet doctors, medical students, Oxbridge graduates, and high achievers from relatable backgrounds so that they can see for themselves, why is it that I need to do well in my exams? So if they know that, look, oh, wow, person X was able to do this and got into university A, they can get motivated themselves and think, do you know what, that's what I want to be like. Or this person's an investment banker, this person's a lawyer, that's exactly what I want to be like. Well, in order to be that person, you need to put in the hard work. And so it's not, I think as a parent, it's the psychology should be not focused on you need to do well in your exams, and that's the reason why you should do well in your exams. It's actually, in order to get into this profession or this career, you need to do well in your exams, and that's why you should be working hard, not the other way around. I hope that makes sense. Any other questions for parents? Can I ask if this webinar is recorded to be seen later? Yes, this is recorded. So after the session, I will be sending this out to all parents, so you can watch this at any point. Useful links for UCAT prep. Thanks for asking this, Sunita. I'll be talking about UCAT and exactly what resources your child should be using in some of the next slides. Now, why is motivation important? Now, the reason motivation is important is because motivation creates momentum. Until and unless a child is motivated in their learning, and I keep saying this, but until and unless your child is motivated, it doesn't matter whether you're a strict parent or whether you send them to after school clubs. As long as they're not motivated, it doesn't matter what they do, they're not going to get good grades. And I can give you a personal example. So my parents sent us for 11 plus coaching when we were around that age group, and my brother and I were both twins. We were not motivated in our learning at that point. So my parents spent obviously a lot of money into private coaching for 11 plus. And despite attending every day for private 11 plus tuition, we both did pretty poorly in our exams. I didn't get into a grammar school. My brother did not get into a grammar school. And the reason we didn't get into a grammar school is because we were not interested in going into a grammar school. What we would do is my parents would send us to coaching. and we would sort of cheat the system. So the teacher at the time, his name was Stephen Curran. You may have heard his name. He runs a successful 11 Plus Academy. What he would do is he would give us books to complete, and as soon as we'd go home, the task was to make sure you do as many practice papers as possible. And so what he would do is he would say, okay, you guys need to attempt the questions at home, but when you come back, I need to see what mark you got. So what he would only look at is the front page of the book. And so my brother and I very quickly, we understood that actually he doesn't actually flick through the inner pages. He only looks at the mark that's been documented on the front page. And so what we would do is we wouldn't do any of the homework. We would just write percentages that we got in that assessment with the idea of knowing that he's not going to actually check inside. And so we did this consistently for however long we attended private school, but the private coaching academy. But the point was, because we were not motivated, we did not see the reason of wanting to do well. And as a result, we didn't get into grammar school. And that extends to any exam. Until and unless your child is actually motivated in their learning, they're not going to do well, because for them it's just it's a bit of a chore. Why do I need to spend X number of hours? Or they may end up just taking shortcuts and say to you, yes, mum or dad, I am actually doing the revision, but actually it's ineffective revision. It's not smart learning. So once you as a parent can actually instill that motivation and confidence in them and say, look, son or daughter, if you become this is what your life could be, that's what's going to actually get them motivated. And I'll talk more about career workshops. And I went to a career workshop. By attending a career workshop is one of the most important things you can do as a parent, because it's not just about attending a workshop. It's actually about getting your child surrounded by like-minded individuals, getting your child actually seeing for themselves the value of what they can achieve by attending these career workshops. That can actually instill motivation and confidence in your child. So once they're inspired, they'll be able to have a clear goal and understand exactly, why is it that I'm doing this? Why is it that mum has asked me to spend 4 hours doing this revision? It's because you only get one shot at this. If you don't do well in your GCSEs or A levels, yes, you can obviously retake exams, but you only really get one shot. And if you don't do well, that's going to set your entire career and future. Obviously, people are successful outside of academia as well, but doing well in exams is one way in which you can guarantee a good life. And that's the most important thing. Obviously, people drop out of college and they set up successful businesses, etc. But not all of us can be successful businesses or entrepreneurs. And so that's why education is so important. And that's why getting your child the best framework is so important. Now, how can parents help? I'm going to pause there just to see if there's any other questions. Again, please do, if you've got any questions, please do ask in the comment section. Okay, I can't see any further questions, so I will move on. How should we interpret university rankings and scores? Great question. So for medicine, actually, it doesn't matter what university your child gets into. They shouldn't necessarily think about, oh, I need to get into Imperial, UCL, Oxford, Cambridge, etc. Wherever you graduate, it doesn't matter what university you attend for. This is more relevant for medicine, but or dentistry, it doesn't really matter where they graduate from. So I wouldn't be so focused on university rankings. The most important thing is looking at each university specification. Every university has ideal specifications or sort of person specifications of what would be their ideal candidate, or why is it that an individual should apply to a certain university. So the first thing is, number one, different universities have different emphasis on academia, UCAT scores, and overall sort of the candidate's ability. So what you should be doing as a parent with your child is looking at each university, seeing how much emphasis they place on each of these different criteria. If your child is really, really academia heavy, then go for those universities. If not, try to look at those alternate universities where they look at more well-rounded individuals. So don't focus on university rankings too much, because at the end of the day, whether you go to Oxford or Cambridge, end of the day, when you come to actually apply for jobs, and this is more relevant for applying for medical jobs, whether you want to be a surgeon, whether you want to be a medical consultant, nobody looks at where you graduate from. So actually, university rankings does not matter. It's about where your child will enjoy studying, where your child will actually get the best chance into getting admission. So just to summarize what we're talking about in terms of action points, how can parents actually help their child, and how can you make small changes to make a big difference? So parents can help by encouraging consistent routines. So make sure when your child gets back from school, there is a clear timetable of exactly on this day they should be doing this topic, or on this day they should be doing X number of hours of revision. I can tell you from personal experience, I was doing 4 to 5 hours minimum of revision every day after school. And that's not because my parents told me to do that. That's because I wanted to do that revision. So that should come from your child. Creating a focused study environment, so making sure they're not distracted. They shouldn't be around social media. It's a huge distraction. So making sure they're not on Instagram, TikTok, etc., staying away from that. Making sure they have the confidence that they know that they can do well. Don't let them have any teacher or any individual for that matter telling them they can't get the grade that they want. It doesn't matter whether your child has got poor grades in the past. Every child can do the best they can in any exam. You can get level 9s. If your child has got 7s and now you want them to get 8s or 9s, that is possible. It is 100% possible. So make sure your child actually has self-belief that they can do it themselves. And the most important thing is, two important things: helping your child to think long term and exposing them to ambitious role models and environments. And we'll talk about more how you can do that slightly later on. Any other questions? Do different GCSE exam boards affect students' preparation for A levels or medicine applications? Not at all. So when I was studying for my exams, actually, majority of my exam boards were AQA and EdXL. But what I would do, I would actually use all of the other exam boards to prepare for exams. So it's not just about AQA. I would actually do all of the past papers that came up in OCR or EdXL and vice versa. So the key thing here is, and then again, this is another way your child can do better in the exams. Don't restrict yourselves to your own exam board. The best way to do well in exams is by doing as many exam questions. If there's one key take-home message I would give to parents is, get your child to do as many exam questions as possible, even before going through all of the theory, because actually it's getting into a routine and understanding what examiners want that will help your child to do well in their exam. So not just focus on their own exam board, but what they should be doing is complete all of the exam papers from their own board. Once they've done that, go to OCR, go to the other boards, and keep going through all of the exam boards so they get as much exam practice in answering exam questions. Because at the end of the day, the theory doesn't change. Obviously, certain exams boards ask for different things, and there may be variation in that sense. But if the topics are exactly the same, they should be actually going through as many exam boards as possible. Can dentistry be put as a fifth option? When we were doing applying for medical school, unfortunately, it wasn't. It was either medicine or dentistry, and the fifth subject was something which was non-medical related. I actually applied to chemical engineering, and so again, another feedback point is, this is what I did: try to have a good backup option for your child. Leaving that fifth, if they really want to be a doctor, for instance, or a dentist, make sure that they do actually have an alternative backup. Some kids actually don't have a fifth backup, but it's really important they do have backup options. I actually had chemical engineering as my fifth subject because I was thinking in the long run, if I don't get into medicine, I'm not going to be doing something like biochemistry. I don't want to be going into anything just to prolong my university life. So my backup was actually chemical engineering. And what I did was, obviously, applying to chemical engineering is completely different to medicine. And my personal statement was geared completely to medicine. So what I did was, before applying to chemical engineering, I emailed the dean of the school and I asked them, look, I'm applying to medicine, but as my backup, it's chemical engineering. Would you still take me on? So before I even applied, I spoke to the dean of the school and he had given me a provisional offer. He said, look, I don't even need to know what your grades are. I know if you're applying to medicine, you're going to have good grades. I can give you a conditional offer already because I know your personal statement is going to be geared to medicine. So that's something that you can always do for your child as well. Because end of the day, you want them to have a good backup option. Okay, other effective revision strategies, as some of you have mentioned, active recall, testing themselves repeatedly. Whenever you learn something, how much of that you actually absorb in the first instance is probably 10 or 20%. The most important thing you can do is keep repeating what you've learned. And we call this rote learning. And I did this throughout medicine as well. I'm not an individual that has a good photographic memory. If I have to learn something, I have to keep going over the same thing again and again and again and again. And so if your child is like that, then what they should be focusing on is not just reading for the sake of it and moving on. Whenever you read something, and this is something you as a parent can do, you don't need to be of a science background in order to be able to work with your child. So what you can do is, especially for your non from a, if you're from a non-science background, what you can do is get your child to learn something, get them to teach you about the topic. And what this does is, obviously, for you as a parent, you may not need to know that information, but what it does is it forces the child to be able to understand the information better. When you ask them, okay, what I want you to do is learn everything you can about organic chemistry, or let's just say it could be on DNA synthesis. And then you could say to your child, I want you to learn about DNA synthesis, and then I want you to be able to teach me about the DNA synthesis so that you can then cross-check the syllabus yourself and see, is my child fulfilling the syllabus that's required in order to pass that exam for that particular topic? So that's something that you as a parent can do, is get them to encourage them to learn something, but as soon as they've learned something, try to teach that theory, because there's nothing more useful than being able to actually teach something that you've just learned, and that will make them be able to retain the information a lot better. So active recall and repetition is extremely important. As soon as you read something, keep reading it, keep reading it. And what I would often do is rotate learning. So read something, close my eyes, and try to read it out again and see how much of it have I actually retained. And you keep doing that, and it will eventually sink in. And the last thing is, once you've actually learned the theory, make sure you actually put it into practice, not just move on to the next topic. Before you move on to the next topic, you need to make sure you've actually done questions on that topic that have come up in past exam questions, so you can test to see, have I actually got the grasp of what my exam board needs. Now, as a parent, what you can do is you can mark your child's work, get them to do the homework. But as a parent, you can look at the mark scheme and you can mark your child's work. It doesn't matter if you're not so from a science background. You can easily look at the mark scheme and you can see, how is my child performing in that question. I'm going to pause there just to see if there's any further questions. How many university choices can you put down on the application? So usually, you can apply to 5 universities. If you're applying to medicine or dentistry, you can only apply to a maximum of 4 universities for medicine or dentistry, and the 5th university can be for any other degree. What about law? Because we should be doing LNAT, and I know 2 different options, and just a thought, well, if it's the same strategy even for law. So my brother's a corporate lawyer. He got into LSE to study law, and now he's working in a top American law firm. So he obviously did the LNAT as well. Now, again, the revision strategies are going to be exactly the same. So it doesn't matter whether you're applying to medicine, whether you're applying to law, the revision strategies are going to be exactly the same. I think that's what your question was. Any other questions for parents? Okay, so if there's no further questions, again, moving on. So making sure they get as many exam questions covered. And the other last thing is about consistency. So for myself, I would do consistently 5 hours minimum every single day for probably 4 years minimum. So from year 9 plus to year 12, year 13, every day I will try to do 4 to 5 hours minimum, and that's probably the minimum I will do. I'll sometimes even do more. And some kids may think, how the hell can you do 4 or 5 hours every single day after school? Well, actually, it is possible, and the reason is, if you really want to achieve the best grades, you're going to have to put in that extra hard work. And it's not to say that you have to put in those 4 hours. It's about how well your child is in grasping new information. I'm not a very sort of a person that's gifted in the sense that I can't read something and it's not going to stick. So for me, it's about, because I had to put in the extra time, that's why I did that. But if your child is naturally gifted in that sense, it doesn't matter how many hours they do, so long as it's smart learning. Now, we're going to get into the part of the presentation to talk about the process of actually applying to medicine. Now, there's a lot of students, parents here with students with kids in year 7, year 8, year 9, some in year 13. Getting into medicine isn't something that can be planned within a year. This requires many years of planning. So it's not something, as you often hear, it's not something that you can take often lighthearted. This decision needs a lot of planning. So For many families, unfortunately, it's too late. So this is one of the reasons why I want to give this talk, is because for many parents, because they've not been through the process, they don't know what their child should be doing in order to get into medical school. And many parents think it's just about grades, but actually grades is just one factor into the whole application into medical school. Grades in itself will not secure your child a place into medical school. It's all about being a well-rounded individual. I'm sure you all know this, but for you as a parent, it's also important knowing about how much preparation it takes in order to get your child into medical school. If your child is in year seven, you should be starting from year seven in order to get your child into medical school, because actually what's the ultimate defining factor is actually having the best personal statement you can use to in order to apply to medical school. So having the best personal statement requires long-term planning. It's not just about, okay, oh crap, I need to actually apply to medical school and I've got good grades, but actually my personal statement or CV isn't tailored enough, or compared to everyone else, I haven't done enough. And so that's why if your child is in year seven, you should be starting as early as year seven. No, it's not to say that even if your child is in GCSEs, there's still time and planning, but it's so important for these next few slides that you really take home this information. So just as a recap, medicine is not about grades, it's about academics, it's about work experience, it's about communication skills, it's about commitment to healthcare, it's about self-reflection, UCAT performance, interviewability, personal statement quality, and all of your non-academic achievements. So I'm going to talk about all of these different things that you can do for your child so that they have these different points on their personal statement. Now, before we talk about that, one thing which is really important is knowing a rough timeline into how to actually apply to medical school. So if your child is interested in applying to medical school for 2027 entry, these are the dates that you really need to know. And please do take a photo of this if you need to. So the first thing is UCAS applications typically open around a year before. So usually around this time, if your child wants to get into medical school for September 2027, this is the time when UCAS applications actually open. The next thing that you also have to remember is about the UCAT registration opens around May 2026 as well. So roughly around a year before in the summer, that's when UCAT registration opens. The booking process opens in June, and your child can take the test anywhere from July to September of the year before. I always advise, so we also, as a company, we also do UCAT coaching. I always recommend to students to try and do the exam as late as possible so that you have enough time to prepare for the exam. Now, for many parents, if your child is in year 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, please remember that don't think that this is only for those kids a year before sort of the penultimate year to applying to medical school. Ideally, actually, you should be thinking about UCAT as early as year 9, year 10. Get your child thinking about UCAT preparation as early as year 9, year 10, because this is an exam that's extremely difficult. It's not something that you can prepare overnight for. I am an individual that I'm not naturally gifted in terms of being smart, in terms of natural aptitude tests. So for me, I had to spend many, many months preparing for UCAT. I probably took 2 years to prepare for UCAT because it's something that tests sort of your natural acumen in terms of being able to respond to different shapes, etc. I mean, I'll talk about all of the different subcomponents to the exam, but it's not something that can be tested alongside your day-to-day curriculum. So for many parents, I would recommend if your child is in the end of K stage 3, beginning of GCSE, start looking at the UCAT exam, start getting your child thinking about why don't you try and start preparing for UCAT. That's what I would advise. And the most important thing is the deadline for applying to universities is 15th of October 2026. That date has stuck since I was applying to medical school. So since 2020, 2009 is when I applied to medicine. That 15th October is always the same date that they always apply. Now remember, the application to medicine is not just about grades, it's about writing the perfect personal statement. So often it's not just a year thing, it's about actually having enough content spanning many, many years. So let's talk about personal statements. So how many parents do not know what personal statement is? Just a quick show of hands. Who doesn't know what personal statement is? And I'll answer some of the other questions in the Q&A. Is there any parent that doesn't know what a personal statement is? Or for those parents that do know what a personal statement is, what is a personal statement? Okay, it doesn't matter. A personal statement is essentially your ability to be able to sell yourself and tell the university why they should choose you as a candidate for compared to any other individual. So a personal statement is really, it's almost like a CV. It's an essay of why, if I'm applying writing my personal statement, why the university should pick me over somebody else. So it's about displaying your academic background, about you as an individual, about your extracurricular achievements. It's about you trying to sell yourself in order for them to know, well, this is why they should pick me over anybody else. I know there were quite a few questions asked. Year seven, we really start. I mean, obviously, the earlier the better. It doesn't mean to say that if you've not started in year seven, you've missed the boat. It doesn't matter when you apply, so long as you realize that actually it takes a few years of knowing what to write in a personal statement. Do they only get one chance at UCAT? Unfortunately, yes. You only get one chance for the UCAT. Um, so some parents don't know what their personal statement is. We'll talk about the personal statement. It accompanies UCAS applications. Exactly. It accompanies the UCAS application. But the most important thing about a personal statement is every child that goes applies to medicine, almost 90% of the candidates that will apply to medicine will roughly have similar grades. So actually, the one differentiating factor is their personal statement. So the personal statement is the single most important thing your child can focus on after exams to get a place into university. They can have the top grades, but until their personal statement is well crafted, it doesn't matter what they have actually achieved, because a personal statement is what the university is going to be looking at. Because how it works is most universities have a cutoff. So long as you've reached the cutoff, you've basically got a chance to actually get an interview. So exams will only take you past that initial cutoff. After the cutoff, they're going to be reading your personal statement and deciding and scoring each personal statement into, well, how good of a candidate is this individual? Because the question they're asking is this individual competent enough to be a doctor? Because being a doctor is not just about, oh, this is a smart person. Because being a doctor is all about being the individual that can actually be a good social role model. It's about being an individual that has good communication skills. It's about being an individual that has the right morals and ethics required of a doctor being in a position of societal importance. So actually a personal statement is testing the individual character about have they got the qualities needed to be a good and safe doctor. So that's why a personal statement is extremely important. Now, what I'm going to do is, before I go into what's needed, I'm going to actually share with you my personal statement that I wrote back when I was 17 years old. So I'm going to read my personal statement out, because what this is going to allow you to do is get a bit of an insight into what's required for a personal statement. So I'll try and read this quickly. Since an early age, I have been fascinated by the workings of life and by the complexities of the human body. I have always wanted to know how things worked in life, and inquisitive nature led me to study the sciences in more depth at A level. When studying biology, I was introduced to some of the different ways in which our bodies are protected against diseases and infections. For example, our ability to produce antibodies and memory cells to help prevent the recurrence of an infection. I was intrigued by the body's defense mechanism, but was equally struck by the vulnerability of the body to diseases such as cholera, malaria, and HIV. It made me value life even more, and knowing that doctors worked to help improve such people's lives and dedicate a career to help people made me really appreciate their role in society. It is precisely this which has inspired me to pursue a career in medicine. The potential satisfaction I could gain by making such positive differences in people's lives is something which no other job can provide. To gain an insight into a medical career, I've been fortunate enough to have secured relevant work experience. In the summer of 2006, I carried out some voluntary work experience at my local nursing home for a 5 week period. In this role, I gained invaluable experience in interacting with people, talking to them, and developing my communication skills. This voluntary work was immensely satisfying and enabled me to satisfy my inner desire of helping people. I'll just skip to the other paragraph. Attendance at the Medicine Workshop Conference at Nottingham University in July 2008, over a 3-day period, provided me with invaluable hands on clinical experience in procedures such as suturing, x rays, ultrasound, palpation, tracheostomy, and keyhole surgery. The highlight of my experience was when I had to wake up in the middle of the night to be rushed to a simulated emergency situation in an ambulance. As part of a team, I helped to save and rescue injured casualties. As team leader of the operation, I was able to develop my leadership skills, make practical and pragmatic decisions, whilst remaining calm and composed at all times when under pressure. Aside from my academic interests, I also enjoy designing and programming websites, something which I self taught. At the age of 16, I started my own design and print business, and since establishing, I now have over 15 contracts with companies who regularly come back to me. Meeting clients and being able to gain their trust is by far the most rewarding aspect of my business, even more than earning the money. I have a strong interest in flying and hope that one day I could learn to fly. I enjoy playing cricket and tennis, and I've won many trophies in both sports. Finally, ever since I determined that medicine was to be my career, I have been single-minded in my focus towards this goal. My experience has shown my thirst for knowledge, ability to interact and empathize with people, as well as a capability of working under pressure, all of which I hope to exercise as a medical student. I'm dedicated in my studies, evident by my achievement in getting one of the top 5 marks in the country for GCSE maths. Now, this is Prakash's personal statement. An incisive and supportive doctor is one who not only examines patients and makes diagnosis, but one who is able to confront both grief and death and act in a non-judgmental way. This is one observation I've made time and again during the various work experience I did. The networking that doctors make when working in a team has inspired me, and this realization of both the teamwork and the science which is involved behind the medical path has heightened my passion to study medicine. I was most fortunate to shadow doctors in the endocrine department, where I went on ward rounds and sat in day clinics. I'm just going to go to the next paragraph. During the summer holidays, to gain a better understanding as to what is involved in different fields of medicine, I carried out work experience with a hematologist, a gynecologist, and a physiotherapist. The placement taught me invaluable lessons on clinical and patient communication skills required by doctors. I was thrilled to have been able to watch 2 different medical procedures, a hysterectomy and a C-section, both of which were fascinating. July 2008 saw me volunteering to play a run play scheme for Refugee Action Kingston, which involved working with disadvantaged children between the ages of 5 to 8. This gave me a great understanding of the degree of the dedication which is involved in serving the younger community. I'm going to stop there. Now, as you can see, the personal statement is your one chance to show the university reference team exactly why they should pick you as an individual. Now, you can see during this personal statement, academia is only one part of it. It's also showing to the individual who's reading your personal statement that this is an individual that can stand out from the rest of the crowd. Now, if you look at my personal statement, you can see things other non-academic achievements. I set up my first business when I was 16 years old. I mentioned about my work experience. I spoke about my communication skills in talking with local MPs. So as you can see, it's about getting enough content to be able to make your child stand out. So that's something that you can't just decide in year 10 or year 11. That's why I say actually preparation requires many years. So from as young as year 7, start thinking about, and this is what parents should be thinking about, is what can my child do to stand out? And we all go through voluntary work experience. We all do all of these things. So a lot of candidates are going to be doing that. Try and think about what can my child do different to another child. So for me, one of the things that stood out was actually setting up my own business. I've always been inclined towards business. It's one of the reasons why I've set up Elite Medics. It's because I want to do more than just sort of the everyday. So even as a doctor, I love practicing medicine and I wouldn't give it up for a second. But I also love the ability to have a much larger impact outside of medicine. That's why I set up Elite Medics. But back in the day, that's exactly why I set up the business in the first place. I did that alongside studying for my exams. And so as an individual, try and think, what would my child be able to do that would make them stand out? It can be setting a business, it can be about setting up competitions, it can be sports achievements, it can be anything. It doesn't matter actually what it is. What's most important is what makes my child stand out from the rest of the crowd. And as you can see in these, I can't remember, I think it's 3,000 characters, you need to sell yourself. Talking just about grades, just talking just about work experience is not going to be enough. It's about what has your child demonstrated to show to the reader they should pick this individual. One of the things I did was, and this is probably a bit overzealous of myself, perhaps overconfident, but I was so motivated into wanting to get into medicine. I actually even applied to universities in the US. So this is a screenshot, and I managed to dig this out back from 2008, where I actually applied, and I don't know how I thought I would actually get in, but I obviously didn't hear back from them. But I sent an email to Harvard University saying, look, I really love medicine. I really want to get in. Can you show me how I can apply to your medical school? Now, obviously, I didn't get in. Obviously, I didn't hear back from them. But this just shows you the level of thirst I had at that age to get into medicine. So something like this is not going to come from an individual if they've been forced to want to do medicine. So if you as a parent want your child to get into medicine, but they don't want to get into medicine, there's going to be a big disparity in that. So for them to get the best chances, it needs to come from within. Now, why does early preparation matter? Because competitive applicants build up gradually. So it's not something that can happen in 1 year or 2 years. It's about building the best chances of getting the best birth statement and talking about volunteering, reading, what's your healthcare exposure, what leadership qualities does your child have, what's their confidence like, what's their UCAT preparation. All of these things will culminate in your child getting the best chance of getting into medicine. I'm going to pause there and just see if there's any other questions. Is it like a CV? Exactly, Rajiv. It's pretty much a CV. How easy is it to transition from biomed to medicine? I mean, for majority of the lectures during the first year of biomedicine, it's probably similar to both medicine and biomedicine. So actually, I would say it's pretty easy. We're struggling to secure hospital-based work experience placement. Do you have any tips on what is the next best option? The best thing that you can do if your child wants hospital work experience is you should be looking at the departments of all of your local hospitals, finding out the secretaries for all of the different consultants, and emailing the secretaries for that consultant and asking them, is there any chance that I can actually get my child to work with that consultant? The secretaries are your best bet in order to get placements into universities. The second thing that you can do is, so that's the first thing I would recommend. The second thing is, every university, especially teaching hospitals, they all have educational departments. Every hospital will have an education department, especially for postgraduate teaching. So what I would do is find out the educational department lead at a particular hospital and email them, because often in order to get a hospital placement, you need the approval of the local education department. So those are the two recommendations I would offer. Do mock exam results matter at final GCSE exam grades? Yes, they do. 100% they do affect your ability as well. Because often, in fact, when you come to apply to medicine, they also look at your mock, they look at your predicted grades essentially, and they look at your GCSE grades. Okay, next important thing, sorry, it's already 9 o'clock, so we've got a few more slides, but I'm going to wrap up the next few slides. The next thing is about UCAT. So for parents that don't know, the UCAT is the entrance test needed for students to get a place into medical school. This is such an important exam. So that's why I would definitely recommend, if your child is in their sort of GCSE or GCSEs, at least at the time of GCSEs, definitely start looking at the UCAT. But essentially, it tests 4 different things: verbal reasoning, decision making, quantitative reasoning, and abstract reasoning. And it's used by almost every single university to deem whether or not your child will even be considered for an interview. Many universities have a particular cutoff. So if your child doesn't have a cutoff, they're just not going to, even if your child has the best grades, they won't look at your child. So it's so important they prepare well in advance. When I was applying for university, there was also the BMAT entrance exam. They've now scrapped the BMAT, and actually they're only focusing on the UCAT for all universities. In terms of how was it scored, as I said, there's mainly 4 sections. Each section scored out of 900, and yeah, so the score ranges anywhere from 300 to 900 in each of these different sections. Now, the thing that you need to know as a parent is, what is a good score? Now, for your child, what I would recommend is, your child needs to be aiming for at least 2,600 plus in order to stand a good chance of getting into medicine. So for your child, they need to be preparing well in advance, and they need to be getting at least 2,600 to stand a good chance. Now, it's not to say if they get 2,400 or below, it's a complete outright rejection. They still do stand a chance, but they really need to have other stronger aspects, and they're going to be putting themselves at a disadvantage. So these are some things that you should be sort of having to know about, so that when your child is doing mock exams or they're doing tests themselves, this is the score that they need to be getting. So please do take a picture of this, because this is exactly what your child needs to be getting to stand a good chance of getting into medical school. Now, the UCAT, so many students miss out because they underestimate the UCAT. They think that, oh, because I've done well in my GCSEs or my A levels, I should actually do well in my UCAT exam. Actually, that's not true. UCAT is far beyond your academic reasoning. It's more testing your aptitude test. The other thing is they prepare too late. They start preparing in year 12, and that's going to be too late, I'm afraid. You need to be starting well in advance than just a year before. They don't understand the strategy required. The key thing is it's not just about theory, it's about actually getting as much practice as possible. So strong preparation, often you need to start early. So make sure, please, you get your kids to start at least 2 to 3 years before the UCAT test, so that they stand a good chance in getting the best grade. Okay. Now, what can you do as a parent, or what resources can you give your child so that they can start preparing? So, if your child is in their GCSEs and is thinking about medicine, these are two books I would highly recommend to get, even if they're not even applying to university in the next year or so, because this will really help them understand what they need to be doing. The first one is for the UCAT. This is the one Bible book they should be definitely preparing for their exam. This is what I used, and this is what the vast majority of students will be using for their UCAT preparation. But I would definitely, if your child is in Key Stage 3, GCSEs, especially, just start. It doesn't matter, even if they don't understand it. It's all about getting familiar with the questions. So even if your child is in year 9, get this book. Even if your child is in year 10 or year 11 and they're not even thinking about medicine just yet, still get this book if they even have the faintest idea, because it'll get them understanding of what the UCAT exam will entail. The next thing is, if they want to write a personal statement, they need to be using this book. And as a parent, it's so important for you to be reading this book as well, because you can then support your child in getting the best personal statement written. Because in this book, and actually, my personal statement is actually in this book, because when this author was actually writing this book, they reached out to medical students and they asked, if you've got into some of the competitive universities, would you be able to share your personal statement with us? I actually sent Oliver Pickard my personal statement, and what he's done is he's curated some of the best personal statements in the country, and he's put this into a book, and he's shown you exactly what thousands of students have written in their personal statement for each section. So for instance, things that you can write about in order to stand out for non-academic achievements. So my personal statement isn't actually in that book. So these are the two books I would 100% recommend all parents to buy if your child is interested in medicine. Can they have work experience as early as year 8 and year 9? Yes, absolutely. Getting into hospitals, you need to be at least 16 plus, but that doesn't mean you can't have hospital work experience. There's so many departments within the hospital that are non-patient facing. So this is really important. You don't need to be 16 plus to have non-patient facing work experience. There's so many departments that you can actually work with. So that's the key thing, is don't think about it just has to be patient facing. It can be non-patient facing. The other thing is career workshops, and which I'll talk about. If you remember, during my personal statement, one of the most important things I mentioned was, and a whole paragraph has been written on this, is about attendance at my MedSim workshop. Back in 2008, one of the big companies out there was called MedSim. They did two types of work conferences. They did MedLink and MedSim. Every single student that applied to medicine pretty much did this work experience, because even if your child has not secured work experience at a hospital, even by attending these workshops is enough to be able to demonstrate commitment in wanting to be medicine, in wanting to do medicine. So that's why attending career workshops is super, super important. It's not just a money-making business, it's an important for your child to demonstrate that actually they've taken the initiative to actually understand what a career in medicine involves. Any other questions? How to sign up for voluntary work in hospital when doing A levels? I think I've touched about that. So you can talk, there's departments within the hospital such as PALS, so something called patient liaison services. They deal with medical complaints. That's something that's non-patient facing. So you could always email the PALS department as an example and just say, look, my child would like to learn about the hospital organization as a whole. Can they come and have some shadow or work experience? Are they updated versions of the books? Are they still valid? Yes, absolutely. Every year, these books, in fact, this is me looking recently, and this is still going to be relevant. So definitely they will be relevant. Now, obviously, there's other books out there, but these are the two most popular books all kids will need to go through. Now, obviously, you can top it up by doing other books as well, but they are going to be relevant. My daughter's in year 12, so is it too late to start this process? Rajiv, not at all. I don't want any parent that's their kids in year 11 or year 12 worrying that, oh God, Anik has said that they should be preparing for year 7. Look, and I'm going to be completely transparent with you. I did not actually want to do medicine when I was 16, 17 years old. The reason I applied to medicine was because I had good grades and my brother couldn't get into medicine. I didn't apply to medicine because I had that innate ability of or instinct wanted to do medicine. I was actually more geared towards math and physics. As you saw previously, I got one of the top 5 grades in maths. So I was more inclined towards maths. But because I kept thinking about what will I do with maths? What will I do with pure physics? And actually, even my parents, they encouraged me to do engineering actually. But I just thought medicine would be a great, safe bet in terms of a career. So actually, I was somebody that did not think about medicine from day one. It was really in year 12 that really I thought about actually, do you know what? Let's focus all my eggs in just medicine. Now I absolutely love medicine, and there's not. I would, if I had to go back, I would not choose any other profession. Obviously, I also run a business, but I had many opportunities to quit medicine altogether and focus purely on running elite medics. But many times I tried it and I went back into medicine because I love working as a clinician. It's the best thing I could do, and it gives me purpose. So if your child has that ability to understand of what it entails being a doctor, trust me, they will work super hard. So doing this is so important. So yes, the sum is basically, even if your child is in year 12, it's not late, because that's effectively when I started. But I shouldn't, I don't, the reason why I didn't say that earlier is because I don't want parents to start when they're in year 12. Any other questions? How many years did you stay in uni? So my university was a 6-year program. So all of the London universities, especially UCL, Imperial, Oxford and Cambridge, it's mandatory to do 5 years of medicine plus 1 year as a BSc. So I did a BSc in medical physics, and I got a first class honours in medical physics as well. Now, it's already 10 past 12, 9, so I'm going to start wrapping up. As I mentioned, the non-academic achievements matter as much as the academic achievements, because every kid that applies to medicine will be getting your best grade. So actually, these are the things that you should be focusing on. So please do get your child to be focusing on the non-academic achievements. Now, as I said before, the importance of being in the right environment is so important, because it can help your child be more motivated in doing well in their exams. Being surrounded by like-minded individuals is so important, because not only will it give them the motivation, but it's actually the competition factor. Knowing that this friend or this person has done this well in the exams is so important, because it drives the individual to do well in their own exams. And so please try to get as many opportunities to get your child around high achievers and doctors that have been through the process. One of the things I want to talk about is, and this is not the reason why I've done this talk, is as a company, our main business is the coaching, the tutoring business. But what we also want to do is we want to make sure, because we know many kids do not get access to hospital work experience. Many kids do not have access to work experience. So what we do is every year we run these practical workshops where we actually give students the ability to be able to come for 2 days and learn what it is to be like a doctor. So what we do is we run this career workshop. It's for 2 days. On first day, we talk about medicine as a career, and the second day, we give them actual hands-on practical experience of life as a junior doctor. We've been running this for the past since 2018, so coming to almost 8, 9 years. Every year we run this program. We have kids walking out our program so inspired in their learning, so motivated in their learning that they're completely driven to do well in their exams because they now that they've seen it for themselves of what life as a doctor would be. Because often what kids do is they watch TV programs, they look at what other people have, and that's what they make their assumptions on. But really, they don't have first-hand experience of what is it actually like being a doctor. So until they actually have that, they're not going to be motivated. So what we really want to try and do is get as many kids motivated and being able to see for themselves what medicine as a career is like. So that's why we've set up this career workshop. If you, as a parent, are struggling to get hospital work experience, if you're struggling to get your child motivated, I would highly encourage your child to think about applying for this career workshop because getting into medicine isn't just a spur of the moment decision. It should be an informed decision where they have the insight into knowing this is what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. So, how do students gain this experience? By attending workshops such as what we have been running. They don't need to necessarily attend this. It's only for those individuals that lack hospital work experience or are looking for something to boost their personal statement. So as you can see, this is just some screenshots, examples of what kids do at our career workshops. They're learning to take blood, they're learning to suture, they're learning about general medicine as a career. They've got interview preparation, they're learning about how to do well in their interviews. So if this is something that you are interested in, and I would highly, highly encourage this because I guarantee if your child attends this career workshop, and they're not motivated in their learning, I guarantee they will walk out feeling more inspired. And the reason why I say this is because whenever we deliver this career workshop, the first question I ask the kids, everyone attends in a lecture, and the first question I ask is, how many of you are actually interested in medicine as a career? At the start of the career workshop, roughly it's 50-50. 50% are sitting on the fence, 50% actually do want to do medicine. By the end of the 2 days, every single hand will go up because they're that interested in medicine, because they've enjoyed the workshop that much. So this workshop is quite changing in the sense that if your child is not sure about medicine, by attending this workshop, they're definitely going to be sure if this is the right career for them. And also importantly, it can tell them if it's not the right career for them, and they can start focusing on other careers. So that's one career that we offer. So this will be carried out in the summer. It's going to be hosted by Oxford, Cambridge, and UCL Medics, and it's designed to inspire students, build their ambition, increase their confidence, and also importantly help students decide whether medicine is the right career for them. Now, what students will experience during this workshop, they'll meet doctors, they'll meet medical students, they'll learn about medicine as a career, they'll experience clinical teaching, they'll be surrounded by students from around the country, like-minded individuals, and they form this social community where they can get feedback, they can learn from each other, and actually they take away, they go out of this forming new friendships. And I still, to this date, the friends that I made during my career workshop when I went in 2008, I'm still in touch with those very same individuals. Now, why parents love it? It's also most important because they come back transform their kids, and that's why a lot of kids attend these workshops, because often parents notice that they're much more motivated, they're much more mature, they're not just going to be now going to school and having no sort of focus. They understand exactly why they need to study hard, because now they've got a focus of what I need to do in order to get into medicine. Now, who is this for? It's for any individual wanting to study medicine. So whether your child is in year 7 or year 8, year 9, year 10, year 11, year 12, year 13, it's for everyone who's interested in medicine, because end of the day, you need to make sure on your personal statement, you've demonstrated commitment to this career. One of the ways you can do that is by talking about a career workshop your child is attending. Now, I don't want to be focusing too much on this because this whole talk was designed to give you as a parent the support you need and the information you need to help guide your child. So this is for those kids that want to boost their kids. You're not sure whether medicine's right for them and they want to walk out feeling more inspired. Now, the most important thing is the earlier the students prepare, the better direction they're going to get and the better they're going to be able to prepare for their personal statement. So this is just an example of the video if we've got time. I hope the audio will do. So let's just play this. Let's just play this video. Let's Let's see if this works.
Need a sunscreen that can protect and hydrate with 3 essential ceramides and MVE technology.
So we're a team of doctors that graduated from London, and we've created a 2-day workshop to help inspire the next generation of medical students. Having been through the process, we know that getting into medical school is very competitive, and so what we decided to do is create a 2-day workshop to help support students. So over the 2 days, students are taught a mix of both theory and practical, including simulated emergencies, skills that are commonly taught at medical school. So for instance, how to take blood, how to suture, and also we'll have mock interviews during the session. The purpose of this and the objectives of this course are not only to inspire the next generation, but also to help support students. So all our students who go on a course provided free one-to-one mentorship. So every student gets assigned to a doctor who will be their mentor up until that process when they apply to medical school. I'm going to just stop there because I know time is short, but the idea behind this workshop is not just about attending a workshop of it. It's about being connected with role models, being connected with mentors to really guide your child. Because for many parents, especially if you're not a doctor, it's all about who do you know? Who can you rely on to be able to support your child's journey? And being surrounded by like-minded individuals is extremely important. So if you're interested in this, I would highly recommend it. And obviously, as many of you have attended, I will be giving a special offer for parents. Let me just go to the next slide. So this is the last thing that I'm going to be talking about for this talk before I move on to the Q&A. If this is something that you would be interested in, this is for students in year 7 to year 13. So whether you're in Key Stage 3, year 10, year 11, year 12, year 13, if you're interested in this workshop, and it's only because I'm doing this talk today that I'm talking about this, if you're interested, we will be offering just for today a 50% discount of the career workshop for this course. If you go on our website, you will see that we are actually advertising this. So if you go to elitemedics.co.uk, I think if I have it on the other one. If you go to our website, you will see we are doing this workshop, and you can see it is being advertised at $750. So that's the usual price for this workshop. But for parents that actually are interested in attending this workshop for their child, for today only, we will be offering a 50% discount, and that's only going to be valid for today. Now, it's only for those individuals that you think your child will benefit. I don't want this to be the focus of the talk today, but if you are interested in your child gaining this attendance, and more importantly for their personal statement, because this is something that they can definitely use for their personal statement, I would highly recommend this. You'll also get a certificate of attendance that can be used for the personal statement. But most importantly, I guarantee beyond the price of this course, there is something that your child will take home from this that will be invaluable. Your child will walk out feeling so much more inspired in wanting to do medicine. Now, if this is something that you're interested in, it's going to take place in the summer. It's going to take place on the 25th to 26th of July. It's at one of our affiliated hospitals. So it's at the Whittington Education Centre at Whittington Hospital. That's in Archway, London. And it will be over 2 days from 9:30 in the morning all the way up till the afternoon on both the days. If this is something that you're interested in, all you need to do is scan this QR code and message us on WhatsApp, get offer, and one of our sales team, after this presentation finishes, will be able to give you the link in order to sign up for this course. Now, please bear in mind, it is a 50% discount. If you go on our website to book this, it will be full price. So if you want to get this early bird discount, all you need to do is scan this QR code. For you join, if there are parents here that are actually attending on their phones, you can actually scroll all the way up. There is a link to our WhatsApp chat. So how you have to do this is click on our WhatsApp link or scan the QR code, message us, get offer, and what we will do is our sales team will then respond by sending you a link in order to get that 50% off. What I can do is I can just share that link again with you all. So all you need to do is copy this. Let's copy this here, copy link. That didn't work. I'm going to pin this message up to the top. So if you want to be able to message us, all you need to do is click on this link over here. It'll take you to our WhatsApp chat. And at that point, just message us, get offer. Now, this is only for those parents who are interested in sort of boosting their child's personal statement. Their child's not certain whether they want to do medicine or not, or if you want your child to be motivated and they want you to be surrounded by like-minded individuals. Now, I would highly, highly recommend this. It's not just about the price, it's because attending such a workshop is so important for their own motivation and confidence. Now, if any parent wants to enroll, you can actually pay using Klarna at the end. So you can actually pay in installments. You don't need to pay all of it up front. But all you need to do in the first instance is scan the QR code, click on the link on the chat, which is our WhatsApp page, and just message us, get offer. And it's only going to be valid until the end of today. So the link will actually expire at midnight. If you obviously want to join this workshop after, that's not a problem at all. What you would need to do is you just need to book it on our website, but that will be at the full price. Now, compared to a lot of our other competitors, this is a fraction of the cost of what other companies charge. So if you look at many medical career workshops, you'll be paying an excess of £1,000 plus minimum for these workshops. Now, this is a fantastic opportunity for your child to see what is it actually like being a doctor. So, and the other important thing is every individual that attends gets a certificate, they get mock interviews, they learn about the whole medical admissions process, and they learn about whether medicine is the right career for them. So if you are interested, please do scan the QR code. Again, this is not the purpose of the talk for today. If you have other questions that you'd like to ask me, again, I'm available. Please do post questions in the chat section, and I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. So this is only for those parents that want to send their kids for that career workshop, because I know a lot of parents struggle with getting hospital work experience. And I really, really want to stress, if your child is in year 7, year 8, year 9, year 10, year 11, it doesn't matter what year group your child is in, this workshop is for all year groups, because we segregate the groups into different years depending on what year group they're actually in. The earlier the better, because then the more time they can actually prepare. But please do, if you are interested, please scan the QR code and our team will get you the link after the session finishes. What do you recommend that my daughter should do to get to Cambridge for medicine? And is there a special workshop? Great question. All of the things that I've mentioned, that's extremely important, whether you want to apply to Oxford, Cambridge, UCL, or any other university. So these are the core, the most important parts. Now, if your child wants to get into Oxford or Cambridge, they should really attend a specialized workshop. Now, at this particular workshop, we do talk about Oxford applications. There's one whole section on the day that we talk about Oxford admissions. And the reason why I'm talking about this is, it's quite interesting, actually. One of the students that actually attended our workshop, I think this was a couple of years ago, we talk about exactly what Oxford and Cambridge universities are looking for and in their candidates. Prakash is one of the co-founders. He's obviously extremely academic. He's got into both Oxford and Cambridge. He did his undergrad at Cambridge, and he's done a PhD at Oxford. So he's basically ticked both boxes. We focused one entire session on the day on Oxbridge applications. Our kids that went to this session, you will not believe it, the very same interview question that we dissected. So what we do during these talks are we go through different interview scenarios. What is it likely that you'll be asked at a Cambridge or Oxford interview? And it's not necessarily the question itself, but more so, how do you actually answer a question that can come up in an interview? And that can be for both Oxford, Cambridge, or for any other university. And the framework we gave that individual was exactly the framework he used in his interview. He got asked exactly the same question. We just came up with a hypothetical question. He got exactly the same question at his interview, and now he's actually a Cambridge. He's now basically accepted a place at Cambridge University. So the point is, you do need specialized help if you do want to get into some of these more competitive universities. I hope that answered your question. Will there be any? Is there any specific extracurricular or supercurricular activity that she should do? It doesn't matter. Now, there's no but there's no sort of like, for instance, I set up my own first business when I was 16. It's not to say that's what other kids should do. Achievements are achievements, and it doesn't matter what they achieve. It's about showing the interviewer your ability to be able to stand out. Now, whether you're a Olympic cyclist, whether you're somebody who's a child prodigy and they attend lots of different competitions, it doesn't matter what the achievement is. It's about something that your child can do which is outside of your day-to-day academics, that can prove to the person that, look, this is a person that actually will go the extra mile. So it doesn't matter what they do. And I don't think you should fit yourself in a box and try to think, okay, this is what other kids are doing, this is what my child should be doing. Every child is unique. And the answer to your question is, they should be doing something that they enjoy, something that they will actually find fun in doing. There's no point doing something extracurricular just for the sake of it, because actually then it's not something that's going to come across. Because in an interview, you need to be passionate about what you're talking about, and it comes through. It definitely comes through. So they should be doing things or activities that they will actually enjoy. Any other questions, guys? Please do, whether it's about the career workshop, whether it's about any other topics, the interviews or the UCAT, please do ask the questions if you have any. Is it a day program? It's a 2-day program. So actually what you're paying for is for 2 days. It's a practical workshop. So not just sitting in a lecture, but actually your child would actually be learning all of the skills commonly done by junior doctors. So for instance, taking blood, inserting cannulas, doing suturing, stitching up. These are all the different tasks that junior doctors would be doing. And the reason we're doing this is not because they need it for getting into medicine, it's because it gives them a taste of what being a doctor would be like. And that's why attending this workshop would be important. So just remember, if you do want to go on this workshop, all you need to do is just scan this QR code or click on the WhatsApp and message us, get an offer. This link will only be valid until midnight. After midnight, the link will no longer be valid. Do you run more than one session per year? Unfortunately, we only run one session a year. And we only do it at different some are all of the career workshops happen in London, and it is a first come first serve basis. So actually for the last 4 years, 4 years on the trot, we've actually had to close our places early because it's always oversubscribed. So this is not our main this is not our business effectively. This is something that we do because we want to help kids stand a better chance at getting into university. Basically, our main business is the tuition model. This is something that we do to help run our kids get into medicine. So that's why it's extremely oversubscribed. But if your child does attend, and this is why at the moment it's an early bird offer, after midnight it will be open to everyone else, and places may not be. We only have a certain capped number of seats. I heard that a lot of paid events are actually not highly liked in university per statement applications. Iman, that's not true, because actually it's not about talking about, oh, I attended this workshop. It's about what have you got from the workshop. That's most important. You will never get penalized about which workshops or career workshops you've attended. Actually, it's the opposite. The first thing is, you need to show commitment. You need to show that you've had initiative to actually take part in attending such workshops and conferences. Because let's face it, conferences and workshops is a business regardless of what stage in life you're at. In medicine, every single year for all of our different societies, whether that's the British Society of Gastroenterology, the British Cardiovascular Societies, every society runs conferences and workshops, and you have to pay thousands of pounds to attend these workshops. So of course it's a paid workshop, but it's not just about paying money to attend it. It's about what do you actually come out of learning from these workshops. So that's why it's important. So even when you do applications for specialty training programs, it's not just about talking about, oh, I paid money and I got into this workshop. That's not what they're interested in. They're interested in is, what have you got out of the workshop? That's what's really important. So as you can see in my personal statement, I mentioned about the things I took away from the workshop. I was a team leader in one of the simulated emergencies. I was able to learn the skills needed by doctors, for instance, venipuncture, suturing. So it's about talking about things that you've done, not necessarily, oh, I've attended this, because that itself will not get you any marks. It's about what have you taken away from it by attending some of these workshops. If for UCAT, we are running actually weekly UCAT tutoring programs. If that's something that you're interested in, you just need to email us and we can obviously provide you more information on how you can get your child enrolled in that. I don't want to be talking about that too much, but just email us info@eliteMedics.co.uk and our team can give you more direction into how you can get your child enrolled in that program. Okay. It's coming up to 9:30. I've been speaking for about an hour and a half, and I know it's a long day for everyone. I'm sincerely grateful for you all for joining today's session. I really do hope that you found this useful. I hope that as a parent, you feel more empowered in order to help support your own child's academic journey. The most important thing to take away from this is every single child, regardless of what they've achieved in the past, from an academic perspective, has the potential to achieve whatever they want. And the proof is basically me, because I know I'm not somebody who's naturally gifted in exams. I have to work super hard. So if I can do it, any child can do it. It's just about having consistency, routine, being inspired. So if your child needs that, please do think about this workshop, because I guarantee if they attend this workshop, they're going to walk out, they're going to absolutely love the workshop, first of all, but most importantly, they really will get the motivation and the confidence in wanting to do well for themselves. Because ultimately, as a parent, you can only do so much. You can only nag them as much as you can. What's really important is for them to know for themselves, why is it that I have to go through this process? Why is it that I need to spend X number of hours every day? It's not to please my mum or dad. It's not to please the university. It's because it's for myself. If I want to get into university, into a competitive course, I need to put in all of this hard work. And that's why we're running this workshop. On that note, thank you once again. And please do, if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to get in touch. Drop us an email, info@elitemedics.co.uk. You can also go on our website, www.elitemedics.co.uk. Just Google us and you can find out more information about our company. We run both, so as you can see on our website, we run online tutoring programs, and we also do one-to-one tuition, and then we also run this medical career workshop as well, which is advertised on our website. But if you are interested in the career workshop, please do not book it the main website, because you will be paying the full price of £750. If you are interested, just scan the QR code, which is in the presentation, or click on the link and message us Get Offer. Thank you once again, and I hope you found today's session useful. Okay, I'll now be ending the session. And not a problem at all. Thank you for your kind words as well. If 2 children come, is there any discount? There is. If you just message us, Get Offer, and just say, look, there's 2 kids attending. Can you give us any discount? Yes, absolutely. And just remember, at checkout, there will be options to pay via Klarna. So if you don't want to pay all of it up front, you can obviously split it up into, I think, 3 or 4 payments. But yeah, that's only if you want your child to attend this workshop. Okay, guys, I'll be ending the session. Thank you once again for your time.